Welcome, 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 and so glad you could join this talk show. It's about AI leadership, from generative AI to agentic AI. What is it? And we're going to talk about this across several segments. So redefining strategy, talent, leadership, and risk, responsibilities, and what have you. Let me first introduce to you my powerhouse guests around the table. So what I'm going to do, and I always do it the same way, I'm going to tell something about someone here at the table, and you are going to applaud when I say this person's name. Okay? Let's make it a deal. We will start with, he leads Entity Data's global agentic AI strategy and the autonomous enterprise. He brings real-world lessons from Asia to hyperscale collaboration, how to scale from experiment to execution. Charlie Dubek. And today, Charlie is surrounded by girls. So the next speaker at the table, she leads ING's corporate tech, guiding large-scale modernization and AI adoption within a global regulated financial environment. I know from close by how difficult that is. She focuses on governance, culture, and a safe innovation. Shaila Gemin. And last but certainly not least, she's a digital transformation leader across continents and sectors. She's passionate about responsible tech. She's all about positive impact and hands-on AI experimentation. She brings cross-industry human lens. Xiaopao Chung. Okay, what we're going to do now is I'm first going to set the scene a little bit with Charlie, with you. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Great. And then we're going to dive a little bit deeper on the segments. I'm going to start with asking questions. This is a little bit different than how I normally do it, but then I'm giving the floor to the table because we are in a smaller group here. That means that there can be more interaction and everyone can chime in and add on each other's statements, perspectives, and what have you. I think that's a nice and attractive way to do it rather than me Q&Aing and quizzing you guys. So how does that feel?
Let's start.
Perfect.
And then we will try to wrap up the talk show, and then I'm going to ask a couple of questions to the audience. So beware. There are questions for you as well, and also to get you a little bit interactive as if you were exactly right next to us at this table. Okay, let's go. Charlie, agentic AI, what is it? Because we moved so fast, we were dazzled with generative AI, and then now we're moving to agentic AI, and we are still working with experiments in pockets and silos with GenAI, and now we're going to try to do something with agentic AI, cutting through. Help us understand, what is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So for going for kind of a textbook explanation, it's a model that's leveraging an LLM that can make a decision or instigate a task, basically. So as we were in the world of generative AI, we were getting to know large language models and how large language models can help us find documents and create content. But now we're in the mode where those models have arms and legs now. They can kick off a task, or they could complete a process, or complete a chain of processes. And now we're in the world of multi-agent models, where you have many AI agents using certain protocols to speak to each other and to work together. So it's really working from that data layer back into a process layer, where you can give an AI agent a tactical task that has a purpose behind it other than productivity. So you could say, I want this process to be done now, or maybe I want to deflect certain things away from humans, and those agents can execute. So it's a bit more complex in planning, but usually a higher and easier ROI than we had with just generative AI.
Got it. And does this mean just asking for a friend? Does this mean you can only do this with structured data?
Not necessarily. Companies that really dove into structuring their data first came from generative AI, And saying that you can't deploy agentic AI without structuring the data is basically saying you can't hire employees until your training program is perfect. You still want to bring in those assets and actually use them. And some agents do not require previous data. They can write their own knowledge base. They can take on simple processes. Agentic AI is not necessarily meaning that you're taking over processes from humans. They can be very simple processes that you don't want humans to do anymore. So when you're looking at that, there's not much data those agents really need. So I think that it's always a parallel discussion, preparing the data, but also moving forward with models that can help your business now, so you're not behind by next year and the year after that.
Yeah, and the combination or the connection between a one-on-one human oversight and one agent is also broken, because these agents in such a multi-agent system can speak to each other and help reasoning. And how would you explain that?
Yeah, I think that if you look at AI agents, they're much like people in a sense, where the more tasks you give them, the worse job they do. So if you give them too much to do, they can hallucinate, you can cause issues. With multi-agent, you can specialize agents to increase your accuracy. So now that there's standard protocols, like Google announced agent to agent, and you have Anthropic with multi-context protocol, you now have tools and languages the agents can speak to each other, so you can control them in flows. And a flow is kind of like a street for a series of agents that they could use to pass knowledge to each other, pass tasks to each other.
Even outside your organization.
Exactly, yeah. So you take insurance, for example, you can have a fraud process, the anti-fraud process, where one agent's finding a problem, the other agent is analyzing it, and the third is making sure that the results are accurate. So you have much more powerful flows than you would have with just generative AI before.
I hope this helps us make the distinction between GenAI and agentic AI. Now back to the floor and the table, because now the floor is yours. The first segment I want to dive deeper into is strategy. So question to the whole table. Now that this is approachable and available, and it's allowing us to go about our strategy a different way, how does it change it? Competitive advantage, leveraging business, enabling the business, or business growth, operational excellence, or how does this change strategy?
Yeah, let me add into that. So thanks, Charlie, for the introduction of what agentic means. So looking into where we started, right, with AI and then generative AI and now with agentic AI, the challenge is I saw across industrial is that initially people looking into all this AI, they're like, it's hype. What does it mean, right? But if you look into it, what it can do and cannot do and the rapid advancement, we need to actually look into agentic AI from strategic perspective into 3 areas. The first is how can you automate? You look into your current businesses and your processes, and today you have quite some manual effort. How can you automate those? And second of it is that how can you actually create new customer experience? If you look what agentic AI already deployed today, for example, in payments, for example, in marketing, in various of tasks, it means the customer experience is changing. So you also need to think about what is your customer experience. If you are in the government sector, what does it mean, your experience to your citizen? And then the third one I would like to emphasize is that what does it mean to your business model? Because your current business model might be even disrupted by the change of agentic system itself. So these are these 3 things you need to look into. But I do want to share is that depends on the industry. Some industries are fast moving, impacted by agentic AI than the rest. For example, if you are a media company, if you are in a marketing company, agentic can automate so much of this. What does it mean to your core business? So what does it mean to your strategy that you need to react and respond? If you are in the area that's less being impacted, you can think about, okay, how do I convince my leadership to see this that is coming where they have not seen it? And also think about what is done for your strategy for it. Yeah.
Who wants to chime in? It's still your or debate or add on.
Yeah, you asked a question about strategy, right? So to be very honest, I don't think that the strategy of ING changed now with the introduction of AI, whether it's generative AI or agentic AI. Just a personal remark here. We're talking, so 23 was generative AI, and everybody's jumping on the bandwagon and doing great things. Now we're talking about agentic AI. To be very honest, I don't. So agentic AI, if you think through what it actually means, and probably you will know better than I do, but there is only one big example of true implemented working agentic AI, and that is Perseverance on the Mars planet. And why? Because simply we cannot do things remote towards to the NASA thing there. For me, that's the only implementation of real agentic AI. Now, obviously, you have many sorts of agents, but reaching the state of actually agentic AI, that's still far away, at least in the banking sector. Let's just bring it there. Now, coming back to the strategy, there is no change in the strategy of ING, and what we see is that AI and agentic AI is being used to see how we can, to make it very concrete, how can we increase productivity? How can we do things smarter and faster? Especially when you talk about things like KYC, for example, anti-money laundering. Yes, that's a very labor-intensive part.
But AI in that space was already there in 2010.
Sure,
So
but there is...
That's certainly not new.
No. So in the last couple of years, many of you remember, obviously we had quite some pushback also from the regulators on to increase, let's say, the effort that we put into catching anti-money laundering.
Yeah.
And often still in our newspapers, you get news articles about fines being given because of anti-money laundering. So still, obviously, a lot needs to happen there. Now, in that kind of space where a lot of manual labor is involved, yes, obviously.
Super complex.
AI and agentics or agents will definitely have an added value there. But in itself, I think the strategy did not change. The question is only how do you leverage this new technology? In my case, and I'm speaking from a highly regulated environment, right? Let's just be clear here, is that everything is scrutinized what we do within the bank. So I can imagine that in other industries, agentics...
Probably not scrutinized, but you're on a...
ING is scrutinized.
Under a magnifying glass for transparency, for who's responsible, accountability, can you show it? So that slows you probably down enormously compared to other sectors.
Compared with less regulated sectors, yes, we spend a lot of time in going through risk processes to see what is the possible outcome and can we justify this not only to our regulators but also to society.
Yeah.
So yes, that's true. But what you see happening, aside from how you use AI in a bank like ING, is what you see happening is that, and that's for me that's a really funny thing, you see a lot of news articles about people being laid off because of the arrival of AI. And because we can now replace people, human beings, with AI. And I think from a leadership perspective and a strategic perspective, I think that is a moral obligation that you have as a company to really look at, so how can we make those two things coexist?
Yeah.
Yes, there are new jobs existing or surfacing because of AI, definitely. And I think if you look in a broader sense, we all believe that the large language models are training the stuff themselves. Yes, that's for the most part, that's true. But obviously there is also a lot of human labor involved.
Yeah, and it's not bulletproof yet.
And it's not bulletproof.
There's a lot of hallucinations still. And so for financial processes, obviously, with risk exposure, this may be a stretch. Yeah.
We're already doing, but if you're talking about agentic AI, where agency is a part, so agents can make decisions. That is the part that's difficult, or at least we will take more time to get that right. Yeah.
Okay, so did let me see. Did strategy change? You're saying no, but the way we do things is different, and you have to be mindful of how do you do it and how do you leverage it. You are also saying that our strategy as such did not change, but we are leveraging new technologies to get closer to the strategy. How would you chime in here?
Yeah, I think that every single vertical has different types of challenges.
Yeah.
And I think if you're defining, how much autonomy can you accept?
Yeah.
I think Sheila brought up a very good point of what is that level of autonomy, And I think
Or
that
oversight.
Yeah, oversight. Yeah. And I think that when you look at the types of agents that we're deploying right now, there is a certain human in the loop factor that you must look at. If it's a high concept agent that's dealing with something that's very sensitive, you need lots of human guidance in that agent. It's not ready to run by itself, but the practicality and tactical nature of what you can do with agents cannot be ignored, because if you think about your employees probably are opening up ChatGPT on their phones and making decisions based off of LLMs every day. And that is going to seep into business, whether we prevent it or allow it, or it's just going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the control and governance of agentics and generative AI is critical right now, is understanding the guidelines.
Yeah.
Also for citizen development, controlling citizen development, because you can open up a browser and start doing things, and you have to have regulations around that. But where I'm seeing gains in productivity, gains in cost, gains in efficiency, is understanding your hyperscaler and putting your model in that hyperscaler so you have controls over it, so you can keep things away from the models, block internet access off, those type of things.
It's not this and that, it's still a hybrid world.
Yeah. And that way you can take something that's not so sensitive and use that technology. I have a knowledge agent that I talk to get things out of my head, so it's somewhere, so the company can actually use it somewhere else. And that is a simple little agent that can send me a report afterwards, and it's semi-autonomous because it sends me the reports, but it's not a true autonomous model.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
So let me see if for a second we could pretend there's not an audience here and this whole talk show is not recorded. I brought with me, because I dive deeper into, are there real use cases in the Netherlands of implemented agentic AI use cases that already have an outcome or make an impact, so not just in a sandbox and experimentation purposes. So I found, I'm not going to name names, but you will understand. I found an insurance company that uses agentic AI as a motor for their claims. Of course, on a higher level, there is oversight or there is a framework or governance, but they are using agentic AI, and it does have clear outcome. And this is already reported in the public, so it's not it's not a whisper. It's a real use case that they are in papers with. A tax, how do you say, the consulting firm or accounting firm uses it for tax and financial reporting. It's if you will Google it, you will find 2 Dutch accounting firms that are using it for tax and financial reporting, and also for VAT classification. If you dive deeper, you will find that, how do I say this, in the waterways for a Dutch company, a robo-taxi and an autonomous ferry, agentic AI is used to leverage, how do you say that, the traction, or to get it normalized, people using these vessels. And there are a lot of them used for education purposes, to give back the reports quicker and the outcome of science, academia quicker. So I love that there are real agentic AI use cases that already have an outcome. Would you be open to sharing use cases?
So in agentic AI, where it makes sense, right, is in the medium complexity level at the moment. You have the simple use cases, the medium use cases, and you have the very, very advanced complex use cases. The very, very advanced complex use cases, some of them are not fully safe, and and deploy yet, right? You think of things that deal with human life or very, very advanced
Of
coding
course.
agent. So those
In the
parts we are
health
not yet
sector
there.
or
So if
yeah.
you look at the medium use cases, there are quite a numerous kind of agentic system already in place. And within the risk boundary, if you are in a regulated environment, your risk boundary is much more different than slightly less regulated
Yeah, of
use
course.
cases. So if you look into the medium environment, already quite some sweet spot that you might need to think about whether applicable now for you and your company. And there is tremendous opportunity there. For example, customer service. Customer service is an area where agentic AI can tremendous help to serve your customer, to serve your citizen. Sales is another perspective, right? So there is area where there is tremendous opportunity. And the third one, if you look at whether you are in manufacturing, industrial, or your operation for your supply chain, these are the area where agentic AI already launched, already in place. If you look into the next area of opportunity, then it's about your customer, how is going to change the behavior, right? In terms of payment, you look into now agentic solution that will do very easy payment analysis and transaction that within your risk boundary that you define to help you within that. So this is something you can think about where agentic AI within your risk level of boundary can take place. It is very, very important that you have the governance and the risk boundary for it, because you need to delegate the autonomy to the system. So that is something.
Just checking with you, I'm trying to visualize. So for customer operations, for instance, or service, it's not a chatbot function because agentic AI makes a horizontal flow, right? So
yeah.
you could say customer interaction, get it into onboarding, or talk to another agent. And so that's also what you are saying, eh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's say you go into a customer agent. Normally, this complex question is handled by a human customer support. Now, this complex workflow can be done by agent. It sort out what is your return flow. It orchestrates to check where is your order, where is stuck. It responds to your customer. In the past, this need human to do this. But if you know how to compose your agentic AI, this more complex workflow can be automated to support it. And of course, in certain risk boundary, you might still want to have the oversight of the human for it.
Yeah, I think when you look at contact centers and customer engagement, there's all these regulations you have to look at as well. And I think the value is extreme. I was just in Asia talking to a airline customer, and they were hit with a typhoon, and their contact center could not receive a single call or email at that point. So they built a robust structure of agentics that kind of triage those tickets. It can handle the basic questions. To do that, you need three things. One, the regulated infrastructure, so you can have that connectivity between the agent and the public. And then two, having the agent and connected to the systems that can access that data so it can give good results. And then three, have a very good human in the loop system that has contextual handoff.
Exactly.
And if you have that, you can start to take advantage of it and still control it, but also a failover. If the agent fails, it can route over the top of it. And that's some of the stuff that NTT is doing with many customers today. But again, like I said, in highly regulated, we're seeing self-testing, where it's ITSM processes, HR processes, legal, things that the banks can control and insurance companies can control, where I'm seeing outward in retail, manufacturing, those type of organizations.
Yeah.
This is true.
I just finished an implementation with a large publishing company. Publishing companies were hit by AI really fast.
Yes.
Probably the one that was hit the majority in all of the cases. It's not just one or two particular publishers, but the whole sector was hit. So we for compliance platforms used agentic AI with human in the loop because of costs also.
Yeah.
Costs, and so it as a return, the customers became more happy with the outcome, but it was meant for cost reduction. So it's the strategy changes a little bit. You can really move around with your strategy, in my perspective. But
Yeah, absolutely. I think.
do you have use cases where, because you come as a partner,
Yeah.
as a trusted advisor to companies across the globe to help them understand, implement, and how do you say, build visions for it?
Yeah. I think, there's three kind of major areas that we're seeing practical use cases. The first, I would say, is as a managed service company, customers are challenging us, add the service to your own service and show me it working.
Yeah.
Then I will start to look at it on my side. And so I'm working with a company in consumer goods right now where we've added 40 different agents that are taking all of the incoming tickets so they can get, checks on their network and things like that. And that was a way of proving agentics in a tangible way. But if I look at more internal use cases, like us as a company, we have HR agents. They're available 24/7, speak 51 languages. I can get updates on my travel plans, or I can get updates on a policy anytime in the middle of the night if I need to,
Yeah.
which is incredible for me as an employee.
It opens more doors,
Yeah,
more different
yeah,
doors,
yeah.
maybe.
But on the far bleeding edge side, we're starting to see SaaS takeout with agents. And that's where customers are able to save a lot of money. Because when you look at software as a service, it's built for people. It's like websites, and agents don't need websites. They don't need those interfaces.
Yeah.
So when you deploy agents, sometimes you're thinking, wait a minute, why am I spending $10 million over here when the agent is actually handling the process? That is more the customers that are on the edge where they're looking, and I think that's where a lot of people will be in a few years.
And so in those cases where your strategy does change, obviously your architecture needs to change.
Yeah.
Not just your technical architecture, also your business architecture needs to change.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're seeing these startups come up, like Crew AI and Langchain, and different types of orchestration. We worked with Microsoft on the agent framework, which is their new evolution. Orchestration governance, just like what we heard earlier, is super, super important right now to put in place. Yeah.
Next topic I want to give to the floor is, does this or new technologies such as GenAI and Agentic AI or other new technologies, how did it change your view on leadership, your view on talent, your view on retaining talent or growing talent? What does it say? How did it affect your companies?
One of the key things I would like to share is the adaptability of it. A lot of organization initially is like, how do I even convince my leadership and my stakeholder to see what is coming? If you manage to convince your stakeholder and your leadership to regarding this AI and generative AI and agentic, what is possible to do is adaptability. Because the speed of change is really massively changed. In the past, you determine your strategy, and a few years, you execute your strategy. What about you determine your strategy and you figure your competitor already launched it? So this is number one, adaptability of it. Second is reimagination. Because in the past, you might not think this thing AI cannot do it. This thing agentic AI cannot solve it. But now with this agentic AI and this massively framework that is provided by various vendor, open source or non-open source, you see this space, what agentic AI compulsively can drive. Means that in the past, you need significant amount of resources, significant of time frame to invest to achieve a new business objective. Now, let's say it's 10 times easier to achieve it if you know how to leverage the agentic AI, right, for it. So that means the competitive space and also your internal space is changing. So this is number two. How do you recognize this opportunity? So adaptability and also reimagining what is possible there.
So this is your way of saying probably that it massively changes leadership, but also talent retention, talent growth. How do you go about it?
Yeah, so in terms of how it's important you bring your organization with it. So that means how can you learn the organization about AI, data literacy. Even you go into agentic AI doesn't mean the data literacy is not important. You still need to get your foundation right. So your data literacy, your AI literacy, you need to upscale your workforce. On top of that, it's important that governance. So while you are innovate with your AI, don't forget about the governance, because that also need to take place as well to make sure like within the governance that is suitable. If agentic AI make a fault, what is the responsibility and role and responsibility? How do you make sure like, I think one time Charlie also mentioned in your session as well in the past is risk exploring. You don't want one system fail and cascading to the rest of the system. So you need to have governance in place to make sure these three into account. So uplift the organization and have a program to learn them.
Yeah, so very indeed. If you look at ING, there are a couple of things that we take into account, and it goes to very different corners. So if you look at our tech community, so coders and programmers, their job will change. And we are now, although we are limiting a lot of AI in the company, so for example, ChatGPT is not allowed on our devices, same for DeepSeek, Claude, and everything else. So we do not have the possibility, well, that's not true, we have Copilot from Microsoft.
Yeah.
But we do not have the opportunity to do anything with GenAI on our own devices. So that's already, let's say, taken care of. But if you look at the use of Copilot GitHub, for example, this is really going to change the way that we build our code. This is really going to change the way that we deploy also our applications and so forth. I'm responsible for the majority of SaaS applications in the bank. And what you see happening there as well is that you need to have different conversations with your vendors, because we need to understand what happens with the data. We need to understand, and that means that the people and the teams that are working in vendor relationships, but also in onboarding of new assets, they need to ask different questions. So that is more on the tech side. What you see on the business side, or on the operations side, we just upskilled, I think 6,000 or 7,000 COO colleagues in becoming digital savvy.
How do you upskill them?
Yeah, well, that was a whole operation, and Natalia can tell everything about it. That was a big program, very structured, very practical as well. So things like prompt engineering was in there. So to make sure that our operations colleagues, who at home at least play with ChatGPT like their life depends on it, but at work they are not able to do the same thing. So we have to learn them, quote unquote, how do you use AI in a company like a bank like ours? And that's a whole, let's say, path that you need to follow. It's not that we're not doing anything with AI, but obviously it is very regulated and monitored by also the senior management. But in terms of what does this mean for talent, is that you see, I always say when we're talking about talent,
forward-looking talent.
Yeah. So the point is, I don't think that we're talking a lot about technology, about do you know how a large language model works? How do you know how deep learning works? But I think in the end, we need also people who actually know their craft. So if you are working in sales, or if you're working in marketing, or if you're an HR professional, or you're in finance, really understand how this craft that you hold works in this company, and how you can use all the processes that are in there to make the translation into AI.
Not just from the content part, but also the processes.
The processes.
So you have to understand end to end.
You need to understand
just your piece.
It's not only end to end, but it's also about, because you were asking about use cases, right?
Yeah.
Well, I can come up with 100 of use cases, but I can rather ask it to an expert or a content SME in the company, like, okay, but where do you think
exactly
we can make the gains and the profits? And the productivity. So for me, it's not only around making sure that we have smart data engineers and we have engineers in place. It's also about how do you make the translation back to how do you leverage AI.
Of course. Yeah. Is talent an item?
Yeah, so we've made a very aggressive change because IT services are going to be transformed with this. So our CEO became our chief AI officer a few months ago, and all of us have dual roles. And so my role, I have an AI role, and I have my role where I came from. And we started a white belt, black belt, yellow belt program in Agentic AI, in generative AI. We have 120,000.
Really?
Yeah, it's been
It's like a curriculum for new technologies. Yeah.
Correct.
Wow.
Yep. And we have 120,000 staff to go through, and we've trained 60,000 so far in the medium level. And then we have the black belts, which are your kind of SMEs. The goal, much like what we heard before, is the developers first, because that's the most transformative. App development is completely changing with this technology. But also, people are thinking differently about how agentics can be improved, but we're very locked down in a lot of ways as well. So people can create their own agents, but they can't share them. I can't give you one of my agents, for example. And so I think when I look at talent, I'm recruiting a lot in India, Romania right now because there's centers of talent that I can use, but also investing here in the Netherlands. We have a very large workforce here, and they're sitting with the customer going through things, but I'm also getting fresh talent that's coming out of university that is jumping in and thinking about these things differently. So when they look at a process, they're not taking in the legacy view of that process.
Yeah,
they're
got
taking
it.
into a wider view. Yeah.
I would say this also changes leadership because I was meaning to go that way. If you have scarcity on talent, you go across border. And then it changes leadership because you have to understand now managing across cultures. And how do you do that? And would you say that the West and the South or the East there are differences, right?
Yeah, it depends on even in areas, right? Like right now we're hiring about 30 a week in Bangalore that have actual agentic experience already.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at here in the Netherlands, for example, you have a lot of really good Microsoft talent here, which is there's a strong area
Yeah.
for Microsoft. So the leadership, I manage teams all over the world, and I think that you need to have people that adapt with the technology and understand the technology. And if they're not doing it on the weekends or thinking about this, they probably shouldn't be in my team, because we have to think differently as an organization. But again, as a partner, it's my lifeblood. It's probably different,
Yeah.
Than most. But it does change that. And I think if I look at a lot of the talent in the United States right now, a lot of the people that are coming out of university are really jumping into this very quickly, and especially developers
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Any more thoughts about talent, culture, learning? So I would say learn, not teach, kind of cultures that you want to build.
I want to add into what Sheila and Charlie perspective. Indeed, in one point is think about your expertise, right, in your company. How do you encode it into the system the agentic can work with? You would like to design the system that the agentic can work with your people, and your people will leverage the agentic, because a lot of time you might design an agentic system so perfect from the system perspective, but no user use it. So we really need to see
Yeah.
how the human and the agent to build system that it will be used. In terms of the leadership perspective, I would like to share another perspective is that, so Charlie also mentioned about bringing fresh perspective to reimagine the workflow, which I also recognize. The third one I would like to share is also looking into even broader, right? You might look into the use case and how to solve it. You might even want to look into your value chain even broader. How do you address from that perspective? Last thing I would like to add in terms of the talent and leadership perspective is the role would become much more fluid. In the past, you are a product manager, you work as a product, you define the product market fit and you leverage it. Now with agentic AI, right, you can also empower product manager to do some prototype coding. So the role will be much more fluid, and important to think about your operating model. Do you provide an environment that the people leverage agentic AI can really have the fluid role? So this is something still to come, because if I look into many HR hiring today, you have a role and this is your role. So how is our operating model and how is our future workforce would be? So
You mentioned earlier, and I want to circle back and combine a point that Charlie was also making with something that you said, and maybe Shaila, I'm also inviting you to understand if you want to convince your board or you want to convince your other stakeholders in the company, and that's really tough, we know. And then you
Convince of what?
to really start experimenting or think about value propositions a little bit differently and opening it up for a different mindset with new technologies, and really trying to start with a little bit of courage and doing things differently in the benefits of the stakeholders, for your organization, your people, and your shareholders. But that's tough. The other thing is, I was thinking of Charlie saying that thousands and thousands of colleagues are trained and are really invested in. How does the debate look like with board members? Because one, you have to convince them, you have to tell them it's okay within boundaries, within a risk profile to start things, because if you don't experiment, you don't learn. And also, if you invest heavily in your people, in your talent, is it then a debate how do you retain them? Because they could easily walk out of your organization as well. How does such a conversation go?
A couple of things that are in your question. So the first one, making sure that you take your board members along or any stakeholders. It all comes down with the business case that you put on the table. That's that simple. We're not investing in new technology or new initiative.
No, of course.
As long as there is no business case.
Of course.
It, right?
For instance, there is a strategic intention. There's a business case for it.
Yeah.
But by use of new technologies, the business case looks more bright. And then you have to convince them in a regulated environment. But then you still have to learn, teach, start.
So in terms of the remark that was made about the fluidity of roles, you have this new platform, and I came across it on LinkedIn. It is called Lovable. And Lovable is like a low-code platform which is being powered by natural language. So you can build your whole application just using common language as we are using here today. I think that is where we will be going. But then we need to understand under the hood what's happening there. And that's the part where we need the techies and we need the people who actually know around how these mechanisms work. But what it also means is that you need to learn, and it goes for everybody in the room, you really need to learn how to express your requirements well. Because that is the biggest part still also in traditional software engineering. Having your requirements clear is one of the most difficult parts of the whole process. So, and it even comes even closer when you talk about AI and building applications just using natural language. So that is in an upskilling point of view, I think let's start there, prompting, making sure that you can really voice your requirements extremely clear and measurable. And in terms of bringing your organization with you in this whole technology is that I think in general, everybody is already invested in AI. Everybody feels like, can we use ChatGPT to do our meeting notes or whatever, or the productivity gains that we have in a personal productivity sphere. That's where we start. So we use, for example, the Microsoft environment for everybody to learn to make their own agents. Yes, you cannot share them. But what we also do is that we regulate also the usage of low-code and no-code platforms. We have it heavily regulated in terms of what can you build on it, what kind of data can be used through it, can you do API calls. So we regulate it so that everybody has the freedom to experiment and to upskill themselves, but still in a way that we can control, or at least if we are being asked to, and how are things going under the hood, that we can actually explain that. So, but it all comes down, in my environment, it all comes down, yes, of course, you can go ahead with AI, but what does the business case say? This is the first time that we're doing this, right? Because if you look at new technologies, and in the last 10 years, or maybe even longer, probably as of the 70s, technology has always bring waves, but if you look at this new technology that's now on the table, it is going to disrupt. It is disrupting us, and we're all doing this for the first time. So it's not that we can lean into, let's say, already experiences from the past and say, but remember when this happened, this is how we solved it. Because AI is now, because I was thinking what you were saying is that I think education needs to reinvent itself. Not from a content perspective, but the way that it's being brought and that we bring. I have 4 children, so I know they are in what kind of stage they are. But that needs to reinvent itself. And we are the first time in centuries that we are facing such a big disruption.
You're absolutely right. I think the whole curriculum of education needs some remodeling.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, but also the way that it's being brought.
How we teach,
right?
how we exam, it's all being new invented. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think let's keep that in mind, because it is a process, and obviously you guys are much more ahead of the curve in knowing what we can expect. However, the ways that we work, my neighbor is working for a law firm. When I talk with her about generative AI and how she can use AI in mergers and acquisitions, she's looking at me like, no.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
we all know that
Yeah.
AI is going to break the entire organization if they are not paying the attention, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the point is that we are all doing this for the first time. We're trying to predict what it will mean for us.
Yeah.
We're trying to predict what it will mean for business models. We're trying to predict what the world will look like if the super AI will come around and all these agents are interconnected and there is no human in the loop anymore.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to, but we have no idea. So I think, I don't have an answer, by the way. I'm talking like I have an answer. But I think it is really important, like you said, to have empathy in terms of, we are going slow as a bank. We take our time, we go slow. Other companies go faster and say, is there no AI for that? Let's throw it in. Yeah, and see what happens. But let's be very mindful that, again, this is the first time that we're encountering something like this. And let's be
But
mindful.
is it though?
Yeah,
Is it though?
is.
Because because I remember that's how anciently old I am. But I remember that in the 2000, the whole sector in the travel agency were saying straight to processing websites, straight to processing, searching engines and booking. This disrupts our agency. Within 5 years, there would not be a travel agency, but it's still there. Or of banks in the early 90s even, and in the Y2K, there was a huge idea that banks would fade away because of consumers doing so many digital operations themselves. So did anyone encounter this? Anyone as old as I am?
Yeah, but there was always a human.
Heel goed.
But there was always humans somewhere in the loop. Now we're talking about a situation that we potentially erase the human from the loop.
Yeah, but then there was an irrational feeling that humans were not in the loop. So they were really thinking. The first time I built a complete digital bank, ING was thinking, oh, this is going to hurt us because the offices and what is now going to happen because a fully digital bank, do you understand what? It's complete irrational feeling. We've seen this, right?
Yeah, I thought kind of a funny story is that the way we work is customers buy use cases from us, and what we do is we apply the knowledge of how much they cost and the security that we learn from other projects so we can build them. And we had one company that the board decided they just needed to do something agentic, and they bought 30 use cases from us. And the first use case, we were like, okay, here it comes. The CEO wanted a calendar scraper agent. And we thought, oh, this is going to be intense. We're going to get a really good use case. And we built it in 2 hours and gave it back to them next. And then the next one was a lot more complicated, but it just shows you that this is just so broad.
Yeah.
That it's really hard for people to get their heads around.
Yeah.
What can you do? Because what can't you do is more the question.
Because it's limitless.
Yeah,
got it. But I love that. Yeah, it says more about me than other things. But
I have one. It's fantastic.
How do you scale chaos? How do you scale chaos? Question for the table. We're gonna finish off before I quiz the audience. But how do you scale chaos? Because this really has an impact on your architecture. It has an impact on a lot of initiatives that are going around and needs to be going around. But can you scale chaos, or is it chaos, or is it structured chaos? How would you?
I think that if you look at, there's a common thing that's said all over the place that we don't understand everything that's happening with LLMs, right? Behind the scenes, and it's the same with the human mind. That we've had this problem for thousands and thousands of years, and so I think it's what we learn from creating organizations with observability and governance and rules and things will happen in the agentic world as well, or in the AI general intelligence world as well. So we have to grow up with our new children that we're probably not the right term, but yeah.
Let's see if we can quiz. Go for it.
I just want to add into what Charlie mentioned. So indeed, think of all these agentic solutions or AI solution in your company, and let's say you open it up, everyone is experiment with it, then you are like, how do I manage this, right? What is it happen
Yeah.
to my governance? What is it means to my cost, right?
Yeah.
So I think we need to think of a space for experiment, a space to scale. In terms of scale, you need to really think of, okay, I have so many solutions now. How do you need to create a modular system
Yeah.
to have certain solution for scale, and while creating a foundation framework of fabric,
Some
that
framework or
that you need
Yeah.
to still oversee your cost, because you don't want next day you are on the newspaper, right? That this data breach, this unintended situation to your organization. So you do need to balance between how do you enable experimentation, which for many companies is a struggle, and another place, if you already experiment, how do you create an environment you can scale for it? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.